What's going on, Panther Nation? Bill Mack here with another edition of the Panther Prowl. I'm glad you are able to be with me in another video as I am giving you the Week 11 matchup between the Carolina Panthers heading to Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams are coming up on a win last week, as the Carolina Panthers had a Thursday night win in their all black uniforms as they defeated the Atlanta Falcons 25-15. The Baltimore Ravens, coming off their win last week against New Orleans 27-13. The Panthers injury report for this game: Panthers got a few injuries that they are going to be dealing with coming into the game. Of course, the big one is, of course, Dante Jackson, the Panthers defensive back, was placed on the IR due to a high ankle sprain, and it seems like the last 3 years this guy has basically been injured. So it looks like the Panthers may want to be looking for another cornerback or defensive back somewhere in this draft, along with many other needs they have. But the list is quite about 4 or 5 guys. Of course, Justin Burris is still dealing with a concussion that he has been dealing with. Rashad Higgins, I hadn't heard about him. He may be back. Like I said, of course, Dante Jackson is going to be out of the game. Quarterback PJ Walker, of course, suffered a high ankle sprain during some point at the game against Atlanta last week. So in his place will be returning starter from week 5, but will be Baker Mayfield, who has been catching some snaps and taking a lot of snaps and reps during the off week at this time. Defensive tackle Matt Ioannidis, he is going to be out with a calf injury. And of course, Miles Hartsfield, our safety, he'll be out. So our secondary is looking a little depleted, a little thin there. Miles Hartsfield was there basically to try to help back up. We've had Chin out. Chin's been practicing. I haven't heard status on Chin, whether he's going to be playing or not. However, we did have Hartsfield was not able to travel with the team, of course, to Baltimore from Carolina, going up I-95, of course. With that, of course, we did see that J.C. Horn was listed as questionable, and DeJohn Ritchie was as well, but both ended up participating in Friday's practice, so that's great news to hear. Of course, Taylor Moton, which had an elbow issue, and Frankie Louvu, who was out last week, or said illness, but they were full participants at Friday, so that's good news for us. These are some things here that we need to look forward to in the game against Baltimore. First of all, would be facing Lamar Jackson and the strong running game that the Baltimore Ravens have. The Panthers defense, of course, that's going to be the problem. We've had issues in the past, not just this past season, but other seasons as well, where the Panthers have, their defense just has not been able to stop the run. They've not been able to shut down the runs. They've been kind of inconsistent this season, where there have been games where it looks like their lead runners they held the opponent's lead runners in check, but for the most part, this is a different animal. Now, Lamar Jackson is known more for his legs and his playmaking ability than his arm. But this rushing attack will be something the Panthers are going to have to look at. Now, we look at Jackson's numbers here. Jackson has went so far rushing this season. He has gone 635 yards rushing, which is second, actually, behind Justin Fields in Chicago. Jackson, he's carried about 7.4 yards, so he's pretty much, with anyone of over 50 with over 50 carries, he is best among those players, and that's what Panthers going to have to watch out for. I mean, Burns is, fast, but they're going to have to keep someone pretty much locked on to Lamar, because Lamar really didn't have the passing weapons this season. Mark Andrews, which to me, in my opinion, he's the only one that really Lamar has. However, it's going to be something to watch where Lamar just doesn't take off and run. He's fast, and they're going to have to either spy on him or they're going to try to contain him and force him to pass the ball. If they can shut down the run, they can shut down Lamar. They can just force him to pass. I think the Panthers could have a chance at it. However, if we look back when the Panthers faced Marcus Mariota, both times, he was still able to scramble some. He was still able to elude the pass rush, elude sacks, and that's something that the Panthers are going to have to do, is keep a lockdown on Jackson. Of course, like I said, as far as like passing weapons, Rashad Bateman, he was our lead guy. He ended up having foot surgery. So we've seen the big difference in that. And like I said, excuse me, Mark Andrews is questionable this week in the Panthers game, which he may play, but he was limited this week, only the whole week. So, and Jackson too. We have to take a jump on Jackson. Jackson has pretty much been sick this week. He's been ill, which isn't a surprise when it comes to Jackson, as Jackson has pretty much been sick over his career 6 different times, I think, where he's been sick. So he's not going to have to, if he's weak and the Panthers can use that to their advantage, why not? They do have Tyler Huntley to back him up if he is not able to go. So we should hope. I'm willing to take any advantage we can get. I'm not going to sit there and tell you, oh, I hope he's 100%, or no, not really. I want to win. I don't want to lose. I don't want if the guy, whatever advantage we can have, Panther Nation, we need to take it. So Lamar and the rushing attack's the first thing. Baker, of course, Baker Mayfield's back in for us this week. Baker is getting, he hasn't been in since starting week 5 against the 49ers. However, a lot of changes have been different since he has been since he's been on the sidelines. Christian McCaffrey got traded away. Robbie Anderson got traded away. Bradley Bozeman has took over center instead of Pat Elflein, which, by the way, Bradley Bozeman, this is more of a homecoming for him, to say the least. But he is a well-beloved person in Baltimore, as he's a well-beloved person here in Carolina. He had some emotional stuff to say on Twitter earlier in the week. Baker is who we're going to have to worry about. Baker has had a trouble with batted balls and things this season in his starts. He was only 84 of 153. He did have 962 yards, but he had 4 touchdowns to match his interceptions. And that was before he ended up getting a high ankle sprain in week 5. When that was when PJ came in. And he's been backing up PJ ever since. And then he done something silly last week after the win on Thursday Night Football. He started headbutting the players, which was ridiculous, with no helmet on. But Sam Darnold will be back up and behind Baker this week. We're going to have to try to ground and pound the ball. Temperatures aren't going to be too high at all, around 30 degrees or so. So they're going to have to try to rely on that run game, which should not be a problem to them. The Panthers have gone from 90 yards rushing to 160 since Christian McCaffrey got traded to San Francisco, which had opened up Dante Foreman carrying the load of the rock with him and averaging over 115 yards a game. The Baltimore Ravens, of course, are second in the league with 168 yards. So these are two running teams, and with the weather like it is, I would not expect too much of a passing affair here if the Panthers play, but they're going to have to watch out for that. And when you run the ball, there's always that chance of fumbles and many players going after the ball. So protecting the ball is going to be a very important thing. Baker's going to have to try not to get batted balls. He's going to have to try not to make any kind of errors of passing the ball. He did that. He would take shots, and that was the thing he can't afford to do, is make mistakes. The Panthers are 3-7. They're still 2 games behind Tampa Bay for the division lead. And so the Panthers have to try to afford to manage the game well. That's one thing I'll give P.J. Walker in the game. He managed the game well. He protected the ball. He didn't get fumbles. He didn't throw too many interceptions. He pretty much, which he didn't really do a lot of passing, I'll say that as well. But Baker has to keep and protect that ball. Now, he knows this team. This is an AFC North team. They had to play when he was in Baltimore. Cleveland, he had to play them every single year, twice a year. So there's no reason that he should not know and be able to know this team and try to figure out the tendencies and help the Panthers in this game. On Friday, Wilkes talked about Chin, as I mentioned earlier, said it ends up being a game-time decision today, which, he hasn't played since week 4. And whatnot. So we hope to get him back. This would help because, like I said, with Miles Hartsfield being out, Dante Jackson being out, they're going to need these. Justin Burrow's still out. Xavier Woods, I'm not trusted in him to be a starter, which I'm worried about because Xavier Woods can't seem to get any kind of interceptions. To me, Xavier Woods just has brick hands. But anyway, Panther Nation, we'll see. And like I said, Matt Unitas won't be out, so we'll have to have Davion Nixon step up and the rookie Marquand McCall to try to get more time since the Unitas won't be up front. So maybe these guys, and some have both had illnesses, oddly enough. So we're going to have to see how it goes, Panther Nation. But I'm going to stop right now, put a pause on it until after the game. Then I'll come back and give you a rundown of what happened in the game, my thoughts and notes along the game. So, as always, Panther Nation, I'll put it on pause. I'll be right back in just a few minutes. So, if nothing else, we'll see how the game is. Fingers crossed that the Panthers can go into Baltimore and pick up that 4th win and just be 1 inch closer to staying in step to step with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Panther Nation, this is Bill Mack here with the first half of the preview video for the Carolina Panthers Week 11 matchup, and I'll come back with a review after the game. So, until then, Panther Nation, we're going to put it on pause and keep pounding. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Bill Mack here with the second half of the Panther review here. With the game now officially over, it was a very defensive game leading up until the second half, until the 4th quarter to be exact. It was a 3-3 game going after 3 quarters of the game. The final score, of course, Panthers fell by a score of 13-3 to the Baltimore Ravens. Their defense played a lot better. They actually shut down the run. Everything pretty much that Baltimore's got yardage-wise came down in the 4th quarter. Most of Lamar's yards were in the 4th quarter. They still shut the run down no matter what. He wasn't able to get out there the whole game and run the ball at all. Neither was Kenyon Drake able to run the ball for the Ravens, and neither was the Panthers able to run the ball themselves, which would have been a big dominance, big thing for Deontay Foreman here the last 3 games. Everything was pretty much a defensive game, excuse me, leading up into the final score here, which is 13-3, which drops the Panthers to 3-8, 7-3. Just to give you a little bit of understanding, excuse me, of little notes here of the game. I'll give you a little breakdown of it. Of course, Baltimore started off with Baltimore winning a toss, and they elected to receive first. I guess to kind of get out there and get off on the Panthers and show them what they had. But Baltimore's drive, pretty much there was nothing but punts and 3 and outs. Now, linebacker Corey Littleton was sidelined in the 1st quarter. He did try to go back in the 2nd quarter, and he walked out to the locker room. So I'm not sure exactly what is going on with him. However, he didn't return. We've seen Bravion Roy, which is a defensive lineman, get an interception for the Panthers on Lamar Jackson. But when all in all, the only offense in the first half was a Justin Tucker 32-yard field goal to make it 3-0 at halftime. Now, uh, the Panthers stats here at halftime, Baker Mayfield, of course, was 8 of 10 for 46 yards. Not much running the ball from Deontay Foreman, as he had been a terror on the field the last three games or so. Had only 7 carries for only 16 yards, barely averaging over 2 yards a carry. Ian Thomas, the lone receiver, had 2 catches for 20 yards. So we saw it. And on the other side, Lamar Jackson wasn't any better, even leading in passing and in rushing the ball. Passing wise, he was 14 of 21 for 120 yards with the interception to Bravion Roy. Of course, rushing the ball, he had 5 carries for 27 yards, which that pretty much showed you, how much they kept him on the ground and less in the air. And of course, Robinson with 6 catches for 87 yards, which most of that was on the last drive of the first half. So total yardage wise for both teams, Baltimore led the way with 157 yards compared to Carolina's only 63 total yards in the first half. So neither team able to break 200. And first downs wise, Baltimore led the way, of course, 10-4. Now, so 3-0 at halftime. We come out of the break. Carolina gets the ball back, 3 and out. We see Frankie Louvu and J.C. Horn on the Baltimore's first time with the ball. Both each get a sack on that one, causing Baltimore to punt. Carolina's next possession, Eddie Pinheiro hits a 32-yarder to tie it up at 3-all. Baltimore gets the ball back. Brian Burns with a sack, making his 8th sack on the year, causing Baltimore to punt. Carolina, of course, punts the ball, and then on Baltimore's third possession, another scoring option happens. Justin Tucker hits a 37-yard field goal to make it 6-3. So Carolina gets the ball back. Shi Smith fumbles the ball, and it's a short field, so that leads Lamar Jackson to get a 2-yard TD run. And then the Panthers get the ball back. Of course, turnover on downs. They couldn't do it. YGM gets a sack on the next drive from Baltimore. And, of course, Baker Mayfield throws 2 straight interceptions for the Panthers' 6th and 7th drive. And, of course, the end of the game was Baltimore running the ball out with time, finishing the score at 13-3. So that was your sum up of the game. It was a good defensive game. I don't know why McAdoo... my question was McAdoo there? Does he just not like Baker? It seemed like he didn't call the same kind of plays for PJ that he did for Baker, and Baker just wasn't throwing the way Baker does, but he wasn't turning the ball over as much. Like I said, he did get the interceptions, but they were late in the game. So up until like the third and fourth quarter, that's where he pretty much he's not able to lead a team when they're down or when they need to go back. He's not going to be that quarterback you're going to rely on to take you down the field and get you points when you're behind. If you're not up for some reason, you're not going to score. It seems like more times than none, the only way we've been able to score has been our defense. It's a 13-3 score. Our offense could not muster no more. The 13 points, that's garbage time. I give that. I don't give any credit to Baltimore to that at all. Poor play by Baker. The defense, I give shout out to them. Like I said, they didn't give up but 157 yards in the first half. But Carolina's offense didn't score no more than 63, so that kind of tells you what kind of game this was. Now, let's give you a breakdown here of the stats here. Let me see. Let me get that to you. Here we go. Now, let me go to box score here. All right, I think we can see that pretty much. Now, Baker had 21 of 33 for 196 yards. He was sacked 4 times. It seems like in that fourth quarter, the offensive line was just, they couldn't deal with it anymore. I mean, the momentum started going Baltimore's way, and hence Baltimore started getting it and just teeing off on him. Now, Lamar was sacked 3 times. Sorry about that. So Baker 196 yards, 4 sacks for 27. So it ended up giving him 169 yards passing for the game. So he couldn't break 170 yards passing. Now we look at the rushing game here. Deontay is being on point. Deontay normally is on point. 11 carries for 24 yards, averaging only 2.2. His longest was a 10-yard run. Goes to show you that Baltimore's rushing defense was able to shut Foreman down. Passing the ball wise, Terrace Marshall led with 3 catches for 76, but trust me, that was nothing but fourth quarter garbage passing by Baker before he threw those interceptions. Fumble wise, Shi Smith fumbled twice. He lost one of them and recovered one. I don't know why they keep having Shi Smith back there, either catching balls or trying to field punts. He don't work in neither one. He's got chances of being fast, but as far as hands wise, he don't have. It seems like not a lot of the Panthers receivers have hands to do anything, so they may want to reevaluate this special team they got. C.J. Henderson, of course, he had 10 tackles. 10 of all of them were solo. He did have a tackle for loss. Frankie Louvu, of course, 10 tackles, 6 of them were solo. He did have a sack and a tackle for loss. Shaq Thompson had a tackle for loss. Brian Burns had 5 tackles, 2 of them were solo, 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss. J.C. Horn, of course, should have had a sack. They should have counted that. I don't know why they didn't. Jim got a sack late in the game to give the Panthers 3 sacks. Should have been 4, which I think it is supposed to be 4. But Bravion Roy did get an interception. Only 1 kickoff return. And we've seen the punt returns and all that. Of course, Pinheiro 1-1 for his only field goal attempt, a 32-yarder. Hecker had 6 kicks. 4 of those 6 were inside the 20. So consistency with him. Now let's look on the other side of Baltimore here. Like I said, most of this stuff here preference that. Most of this stuff was in the second half. Lamar was pretty much basically shut down. He got like 150 some yards, I think it was. Let me pull these notes back up. Lamar had 120, so he had 209, so he had less than 80 yards passing, so he wasn't doing much at all in the passing game. He did get interception. He was sacked 3 times. Drake, of course, 46 yards. Most of that, I can guarantee you, 115 yards, that wouldn't have been a total other than that last garbage time, where it seemed like the team kind of really just gave up. Receiving-wise, Demarcus Robinson, of course, 9 of 128 yards. Most of that garbage time. I mean, that really was, folks. I mean, he was targeted 9 times. He caught 9 passes. Andrews, of course, was back in this game. To me, his favorite target. 6 catches for 63 yards. He was actually one, I would say, that was consistent through the game. He got in big spots for Lamar when Lamar needed him and got the catches. So his was pretty much on point. We see here Patrick Queen had 12 tackles and a half a sack and a tackle for loss. Roquan Smith, who they acquired last week, 7 tackles. One of those, he had a sack. And, of course, we see that JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, yes, he is still playing. He had a sack, and Calais Campbell, of course, with a sack as well, and Justin Houston, other half a sack with Patrick McQueen, to give the Baltimore Ravens 4 sacks, as far as 7 quarterback hits on the quarterback. So, terrible game. Let's look at the team stats here, folks. Of course, passing downs. First downs, the Panthers were outnumbered there. Third down efficiency, the Panthers was only 3 of 12. They're still dead last. They were averaging over 28.2% on third downs this year, which in efficiency, that's dead last in the league, which means they cannot get off the field in third downs. They rarely get 3 and outs on other teams, and that just goes to say a lot of things. Total plays, they ran more plays. Total yardage, 308 to 205. Only one more drive, more yard, over almost a yard more. Passing wise, they got more passing yardage, of course, 193 to 169. We see rushing wise 115 to 36. Penalties, they were pretty much even. The Panthers had 3 turnovers, which 2 interceptions by Baker near the fourth quarter and a fumble lost by Shi Smith in the second half. So all this damage was done by our offense in the second half. They were hanging right in there. I mean they weren't giving up plays. They were actually protecting the ball. But here coming into this, they were actually, fourth quarter came and it's like a totally different game for them. Time of possession, of course, Baltimore had 7 minutes longer. It was a terrible game. We go into the bye this week, so we won't lose. 3-8 is our record. What we dropped to, of course, Baltimore picks up to 7-3, and they become over 500 at home at 3-2. Panthers are still winless on the road and still winless outside the conference, or the division, which I said in the preview that's one thing we needed to do. We definitely needed to have to win a game. We needed to win outside of the division, and we needed to win on the road, and we done neither. So here we are, back where we stand. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where we fall in the draft rankings. But it remains to be seen. But you win again. It's the Panthers being inconsistent. Baker being trash as usual. I would look and I would make it a point to believe that more than likely Sam's going to play the next game. But if PJ's healthy, I would put PJ in. If he wants to win, I would not put Baker back in, because if he's played to 70% of the snaps, he does not need to go back in if he hasn't played them. Let him keep that 5th round pick. Let him give it to Cleveland. Let him have a 5th rounder, not a 4th rounder. He don't need to go back out there. Baker just cannot get him. And like too is, I shoulder a lot of it to Ben McAdoo as well. I don't think he's calling a good game for Baker. I don't think he's able to. Baker, I will say, did not have many batted balls this time. He did a lot of movement. You could see there was some difference in the play calling now and the offensive line now compared to what it was on week 5 when Baker last started. So that is an improvement, but Baker's still trash. Baker will be trash. Baker is not going to be re-signed. He is not going to be a future franchise quarterback for anybody, not in this league. Let him go to the XFL, let him go to the USFL, let him go to the Canadian Football League, but he is not going to be a franchise quarterback for this team here. So just a trash game all around. So Panther Nation, it's another sad loss to suck up here. Like I said, the bright light to this coming week is that we won't lose this weekend, because we will be in a bye week. So let's cherish this bye week for what it is, and let's just hope that the Panthers can play better coming out the bye when they start on their next game. So I might do a video next week doing a lead up to, or I might not. It just depends. Excuse me. But I do look forward to doing the videos as always. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it all. And excuse me. And this is Bill Mack. As always, like, subscribe, follow my socials, and until next time, keep pounding.